afternoon session of the Sugar event. So it's also the final event for all the old design thinkers. And this is why we also made this panel sessions together with Muriel and Rita, two also former design thinking students. And today we want to talk about actually the topic of change by design. And the reason why we chose this topic was also kind of a remember to this book by Tim Brown, who is the former CEO, I don't know if he's still today, and I think most of us read it at one point or got recommended to read it. And we just a bit want to reflect also about some things that were also mentioned in this book. And today with me, I have Muriel. Muriel is from Switzerland and located in Zurich. She was in the DT program between 2017 and 2018 and is a very curious mindset when it comes to work, but also her, I would say, after work activities and weekend activities. And why I think she's so interested, because she's all about the future of work. And when we talk about the future of work, you would see it's not only about the space, but it's also about leadership. So a big applause to Muriel. And we also have Rita. Rita was in the design thinking program between 2015 and 2016. She's originally from Portugal and now in Lund, Sweden. And the reason why I think she's so interested, because she brings the two components together. She's a designer by education, but also studied innovation and economics, so brings these elements together. And today works in corporate innovation at Tetra Pak, where she is designing and working on the future of packaging, but also the future of food. So also big applause to Rita. Yeah, and myself, I'm Susanna, located in Switzerland. I did the design thinking class in 2016 to 2017. I'm now working in the chemical industry, and I'm kind of, my mindset is especially around, okay, how can we use digitization as an enabler for sustainability in a, I would say, rather heavy industry. Yeah, so this is about it. And I directly want to start with the word kind of change and design. And my first question would be to Rita, like, what do you change by design in your job?
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, Susanna, and very glad to be here today. I mean, in my work nowadays, it's really about building future food systems. And that's what we are trying to change using design as an enabler as well. Not only, but as well, an enabler. But also, I came to notice that I end up changing organizational culture, for instance, using kind of a design thinking mindset or a human-centered design mindset. We often talk about implementing new innovation management systems, and that's also about changing. And in every step of this journey, we always keep in mind the users, the people that surround us, and how to build the best systems and culture for them. So I think that's it. I hope I answered your question, Susanna.
Yeah, and how about you, Muriel? What is the changing element of your daily
Yes,
job?
I really liked Rita's answer, because what she said at the end about changing culture, where I would also say this is probably the big picture that I'm also working towards to actually change behavior. But in the core, as I work for a workspace design company, we always say we try to change behavior by their spatial environment. Or like in German, we say Verhältnisse steuern das Verhalten. In English, like spatial conditions lead behavior. So depending on what we are surrounded by, we're gonna behave differently. And I really like that thinking. It's not limited to the spatial environment. Of course, it's about management systems, as said by Rita, and other stuff. But this is where I really see the core of change by design. So we change the corporate architecture, the spatial design, and hopefully change how people behave because they have a different setting to adapt to.
Can you name a typical example of behavior that you often recognize, or where you think, oh, again?
Yes, so like the obvious thing that we know also from movies like Wolf of Wall Street, they're like this big meeting settings, meeting rooms that look really heavy, where you sit down in a chair and you never get out of it because it's so comfy and you lay back. And what we try to do, for example, like very specifically, we change the setting of a meeting room. So we say, okay, like right now I'm in a room where I'm standing. Of course I can sit, but I'm still kind of in an upward position. It's not getting too comfortable, not because we don't like comfortable, but because we want to have people engaged and moving. So for example, you can play around what kind of chairs you put in, if you put any chairs in. You see whiteboards around me. You see, no, you can't see, but I see playful elements that should give some inspiration. And this is intentionally to trigger something else. Like everybody coming into a playful room will interact differently. And maybe usually people don't realize this, but if you start being sensitive to this, you realize people behave differently depending on which room they are. The meeting room is the classic one.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting to hear. I also just read an article today about how we're losing currently our movements, like because we don't move at all in home office, and that we really should like start stretching or anything just because we're tied to this chair and we're like robots.
Yeah, we also always recommend to companies, we say movement triggers interaction. Because if you sit still the whole day at one place, you see the people around you, but nothing more. But if you move, if you spend 2 hours in this setting and 2 hours in a different setting, you will automatically see some different people and interactions, having interactions and connections. So this is also what we try to push in the companies, to say, don't let your people sit in the same desk all day. You should have an interest in them moving around. So there are more connections, a better network, what we all aim in the world we live today.
So when we talk about design thinking, human centricity is a core element of it. And so you are now working since a few years, and I wanted to know, is this still the core of your job, or what other elements became part of your projects and your practices besides human centricity?
Yeah, very interesting question. I will take it from here. Sorry to jump on the train. I think it's so interesting because I don't know about you, Muriel and Susanna, but I was never hired to work in a human-centric way. Fortunately, I passed by 3 to 4 companies, more or less, depending on what you call work. But in those companies, I worked with innovation, but I was never hired as a designer or as in any sense connected with design thinking at all. And then it was something I brought with me, let's say, in my backpack. And then I started challenging how these companies and these projects were working with innovation instead. So I brought it in the toolbox.
Didn't
Yeah,
better say, sorry for jumping in, is it a mindset then, or is it a method or the methodologies?
yeah, I think it's more about the mindset actually, because I mean, I've worked in very large corporations. I worked in a Iberian retailer that was like market leader. I worked in a healthcare company with more than 50,000, sorry, employees. And now I'm working with Tetra Pak, 25 plus thousand employees. So they are very large corporations. They have their own set of methodologies and tools and processes, and normally they are very, intricate together, and it's very difficult to kind of jump on board and change things from night to day. So, but if you come with a mindset, it already starts to alter at least how other people see the work you do. You start to inspire other people to think differently, to act differently, to be more empathetic, to be more curious, to accept failure, for instance. So all these things, I think that's really like the beauty of being a sugar alumni, right? Is that you can bring that on your toolbox. And then back to your question, I think nowadays the main add-on to this human-centric part is the sustainability part, really, and not only environmental, but like the working for the good in society, or as well for prosperity in in global populations at scale. Those are topics that are very much in the jargon of my colleagues and my own when we work in the different projects. Be sure that it responds to human needs, but it's also good for the planet, and even if possible, solving some of the wicked climate problems out there, you know.
I really like the approach, and I can also confirm it. Like, of course, human-centered design or the mindset, you bring it along. And I think it's also what everybody from the Sugar Network takes or brings into the world. What I also see, and it goes into the same thing about sustainability, that more and more companies work toward like purpose centricity. So they take away of course humans are the core and important, but that they say, okay, we don't want to look and ask what do they need, but we actually want to set an example and lead the way. A very good example for this is Patagonia, that says, okay, we want to do more. It's not just about growth, but we want to balance like profits and purpose. And there is a whole like network, it's called B Corporation, where you get the certificate, and companies dedicate themselves to actually balance purpose and profits in a good way. And I think it's getting into this direction where people start to follow companies that are purpose driven. And I think it's in a good way. Of course, you need to offer something that people need, but also they will make a difference if they see that you're purpose driven by what you do.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And this is also what I see in my job. It's really the question also of like long-term thinking. So I think that was definitely a learning for me now, I would say growing up and working in a company now, is that you get away from, okay, crazy ideas, let's do it now. And not only follow like trends or also technology trends, but to really think, okay, what is the long-term benefit that we can take, or like impact that we can do, and really what does it do with our planet? Can we still do it in 5 years? Do we still have the resources for this? So these are questions that that we need to ask ourselves in the project. And what I also saw in preparation for today was human centricity is not only the customer, it's also internally. And I think you all addressed it. It's one thing understanding the customers, doing customer journey, but I would just put up the hypothesis that we all do this on a daily basis with our coworkers to see, okay, what are their pains and gains? Where are they right now in their customer journey? Why do they need certain time to get to like a decision point or something like this?
Absolutely. It's also when we talk about how we catch people, or like more like people that struggle more or not so open, the challenges, where I also see what we learn in design thinking, walk in their shoes. So I always try to understand, okay, where is this person standing at the moment? How do I catch them? What do they need as arguments that they feel that it's beneficial for themselves? So I always say people want to shine, everybody wants to shine. So I try to make them shine, and give them the arguments how they can shine if they, work towards the future in a sustainable, purpose-driven, human-centered way, basically.
That's really interesting. I mean, I studied for like my master thesis a lot about something called innovation implementation. I think it's a very curious topic. I'm very passionate about it, but it's about how you can implement an innovation. So you create a new product or a new service, and you want to implement it in the organization so that then the organization can actually commercialize it and reach the customers. And it's actually very interesting that 9 out of 10 projects, they fail in the implementation phase. So you might have the most brilliant, business models, services, whatever not. And then it's about internal problems that you will fail to actually implement them and then eventually commercialize them. And when interviewing people, you kind of start realizing it's like it's so many problems. Some of them, they feel like their jobs are at stake, some others, they feel like it's not their job to work with innovation. Some other feel like it's very interesting, but that's not what they are measured on. It's not what determines their bonuses in the end of the year. So all of these things, I mean, bringing this like mindset of, again, the human-centric mindset is so important, because if you try to be, just blind to all these problems, you will probably not succeed, or wherever innovation or job you're trying to do, because you really need to feel the people around you and try to navigate that ecosystem of many times unhappy people. And so you need to figure out a way of making it work and inspire them as well, as you were saying, Muriel, like make them shine.
Yeah, but now you said an interesting thing, unhappy people. So that's also like part of what I try to do, is to create a fun and inspiring environment where they actually feel like, oh my God, it can actually be fun, or we can have a good time. That they feel like, okay, firstly, I would like to interact more with this setting, with those people here. I want to be part of it because it makes me feel good. Because so many people are not happy, as you said, frustrated. We all know that. We actually had one persona called kind of like that in our challenge. And I feel like you can do so much more with positivity and giving them a good, warm feeling. So I totally agree with you, because there are so many problems. So you really have to tackle the person, the ego, the emotion.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I've actually right now two follow-up questions. Like first, Rita, what best practices do you see there? How can innovation succeed? And I think we, like Muriel and I, we can sing a song out of this, and Falk, write I don't know how many books out of it. But what is a core element where you would say, hey, please look into this? What is also a recommendation to all the students today for their job? Like, take a look at this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you said, there's plenty of tools out there, plenty of like ideas on how to solve these. I feel it comes back to what we were just discussing. I mean, you cannot pretend that there's one methodology to solve what it's called like stakeholder management, let's say, or basically having good relationships with your co-workers and colleagues, and manage to like make them inspired towards delivering on the innovation you're trying to do. It's getting to know them, really being curious about them, not pretending you know what they are passing through. There's so many more things outside of the office as well. And sometimes a person is just, I mean, I see that a lot of times, a little bit less now that I'm on a Swedish company, I must say, but I see that a lot of times people sometimes come to meetings and they yell a little bit and they show that they are angry and they feel like they were not heard, or something like this, and you don't know what is going on. It could be that that person is actually a very nice person, 364 days in the year, and it was just that one day. So try to learn more about the people that you're working with, and try to manage it in that way. Be curious, make conversation normally at the coffee machine, and now I don't know, like virtual fikas. Fika is the word we use in Swedish for a coffee break. So here we go, virtual fikas. I think that might be one tool.
Yeah, something that we tried out and like for the last 2 years was at the beginning of every meeting we set our color. So we had green, orange, and red. It was just to kind of say when you're in a red mode, everybody just accepts it, or just also knows, okay, why is a person maybe very stressed or behaving, just not in the way they are, but they still don't need to say what is wrong with them. And I think that was really giving, like allowing people to say how they feel, but still giving them the space. So I think that changed a lot, as I saw in the team, and really made like a spirit also there to say, hey, at the beginning, to play with colors, and then to target people with this.
I think that's very interesting. It's like basically creating a safe environment to share your emotional state and your struggles as well. That's very interesting.
I mean, at the end, this is also something like about being authentic and being able to be authentic. And a lot of people always say I'm playing a role, like at work and privately. But Frédéric Laloux, he's also saying in his book about how we should change, reinventing organizations, that it's more about being wholesome at work. So not playing a role, but being yourself all the time, because it takes away pressure. You can breathe, relieve, you can be yourself. And with this also, of course, comes that you can share honestly how you feel. Even maybe say that if I'm afraid what is coming, even though I want to be part of it, but I'm afraid. So getting into a different kind of collaboration or working together.
Yeah. Great book, by the way.
Yeah, we will come to this question later. Anyway, I also want to open the round for questions. So if there's questions coming in from the student side, please just put them in. And oh, we already got one. So what kind of challenges do you experience when running such a redesign project? How do you deal with the upcoming resistance from employees? I think we already tackled it a bit. But besides of that, is there anything that we would like to add? I think we really said it's okay. Special focus on the people. Then maybe just a hint from my side, play also a bit with the strategy of the company, because I would say the typical reason why they say no is budget. There's never budget, and no matter how big it is. But if you go along with the strategy of the company and say, hey, this is our vision. We have in our strategic pillar that sustainability is a key element of our company. I think it gets a really strong argument. And then you're never in this area where they say, oh, there's no budget. Or how do you try to convince them, I would say the big bosses?
Yeah, I mean, where you tap right now around, it's exactly that political area that you have to consider, especially in large corporations. It's part of the game. And as you said, like, consider strategy, consider also branding. Look where the pain points of the companies are. It's also coming from workspace design. Usually, if you want to change your interior design, it costs a lot of money. Nobody wants to pay this. But this is also, it's just a tool. The space is just a tool. What are the pain points? The pain points of companies are the war for talents. They don't get the best employees anymore. They maybe lack innovation, what they need. Sales is going down. So you always have to find a way to tackle those big problems where they listen to it and give a solution. It's not just for the sake of redesigning or having a design thinking project to do it, because you actually try to solve the really big problems. And design thinking is one way or one cornerstone to start there. But I really would say, yeah, give them answers, because usually they have, like, your boss has to go to his upper boss and argument. So prepare the arguments so it's easy to pitch, because usually it's also like, oh, I don't know how to argue, so I'm going to say yes and no right away. But if it's well prepared, it's much easier to get it up. And again, make them shine. If they're going to be like, okay, we're the first one doing this, we can do it really nicely, and branding and marketing. It's a different trigger, because everybody has an ego. Why not also maybe address the ego a little bit?
Yeah.
How about you, Rita?
No, I really like that point. I think it's really important to try to fit your pitch to the person you're trying to pitch to, sorry. And I mean, in the end, the big bosses or the C-level or whoever you are pitching to, all of them have different interests, and it's very based on their personality and their, personal interests. So it's not even about their position in the company. Sometimes you have to go to deeper things, like, are they enthusiastic about AI? Okay, then maybe try to go through that point, right? And I found it very interesting when you were saying, like, you have to convince your manager that then has to convince his boss or her boss. And I now have the opportunity to be in a not flat, but flatter organization, which was not happening in the previous experiences. And in this experience, I got the opportunity to actually pitch directly to C-level quite recently for some times, around 3 times more or less. And it becomes so strange at the beginning. You're like a novice, you're very young, you feel like, okay, I have some experience, but how am I gonna do this? So then I think the tactics is as well, I don't know those people, I'm gonna go in this room, with people I don't know. So try to get this information through other people. try to survey, like the people you are comfortable with, your mentors, your buddies, your colleagues, whoever knows what happened in the previous years in the company, and try to understand what was the strategy so far. What projects does this type of executive support? What do they like to hear? Is it sales numbers or is it benchmark from another company? So, and then adapt your game.
Totally. What I also liked about this, and probably every student experienced this the last few months, ask where they stand. What is their level of knowledge about what you try to pitch? Because sometimes you start with the basic and they're like, okay, we've heard this 10 times, so you're already out. Or you start too far and they're like, I didn't understand the basics. So I just add on to what Rita said, ask also the level of their knowledge, understanding with the topic.
Great point. Great point.
Yeah, and don't forget, and I think this goes to all of us, so to Muriel, Rita, but also to all the listeners today, we are the future. So yeah, the big bosses make the decision, I would say, for the next 3 years, but we do it for the next 20 years. And this is a huge difference when you say yourself this, hey, I'm standing in front of someone who I would say, let's call it 5 more years, and I have 20 more years to go. And this gives you a lot of internal power to actually get out a bit of your shy zone and say, hey, why we need this. I think that's also a bit like, be confident, you have a voice.
Absolutely. It's actually always when like I am part of the executive board, but always like in the discussion in the beginning, I walked in and I was like, I am the future, just to walk in more confident, because everybody is like 10, 20, 30 years older. And of course, I'm the only woman and everything. But then I was like, okay, I am the future. Totally what you said.
No, that's great. I mean, it's just that I feel it. I never felt it like that. I never thought it like that, like I'm the future, but it's more, we have the vision. We are like, for instance, when discussing sustainability, I think this is so transparent. It's like, I want to have a world, in few years from now where I can live as well as today. So I feel like it's so important to work in sustainability topics and to have a sustainability lens for every project. And then maybe, top executives, they don't really feel the pressure. So you come with these like visions, to the table. And if you sound passionate and you sound like you understand what you're saying, I think that's also halfway through, definitely.
And it's about learning. So I have 2 more questions. And the first one is like, in this now completely digital work, how can you stay creative? So that will be my first question. And my second question is like, what is your favorite design thinking story, memory, aha moment from this 1 year of sugar that you did?
Okay, I can start on this one. I love to work like non-digital on paper. It's where I can think, not like be stuck to the screen, but actually whiteboards are my best friends. I guess you guys know that after 1 year of design thinking, even though it was mostly digital. So I also like to change sceneries, perspectives. I love to interact and get to know stuff from different people. So it's about talking, listening to interesting people where you just get inspired and you're just like high after listening and talking to them, because like, okay, so many different new ideas, and it triggers me because I also want to have good ideas and have like a good conversation with them. And then of course, reading. There's so many great books out there. It's also the good thing about today's world that you don't have to invent everything by yourself. There is so much knowledge out there, and you can learn so much from the past and what has already been done, and recombinating old stuff to new stuff. So read and get triggered, inspired by it.
Yeah, totally agree with that last point. So much out there. I mean, I think on my case, I go a little bit in line with you. I really feed on other people. So I really need that like challenging conversations and discussions, and to get different inputs from different worlds. in order to kind of train my curiosity. Because it's like, I know that both of you are nature people, so maybe you will connect with this. It's like riding a bike, I'm not a good rider, so I'm probably not the best example, but like, you never forget it, how to be creative. But if you do it every day, you feel so comfortable that you enjoy it a lot. So it's basically the same, right? And I feel like creativity is also very connected with curiosity. If you know different sources, different things, let's say points of information, you just connect them and much easier, and your brain never stops. So, I mean, I've been having a lot of help by my mentors. I have more than one. I'm a lucky person. And then I'm also a mentor to another student. So, all of these connections, you really enlighten these like challenging discussions, and then just try to like learn and read or actually do arts and crafts or something in stuff that you're not used to, like something new, something you never done before, or something you never spent the time to learn before. Because sometimes, it's the climate crisis or the political challenge somewhere in a different place, or different arts and crafts that you're learning new will like just trigger your creativity. So I feel like that's what has been keeping me this year, challenging people and challenging hobbies.
That's good to hear. And now about the final part, your favorite aha moment. What was a game changer in 1 year of sugar, or what still makes you laugh, cry?
Muriel, go.
Okay.
I need to think about this.
Okay. So I would go with two things. Like the first thing, we talked a lot about people today already, and I'm gonna stick to people. So I loved the community. I loved my team. We had a great time. So I really loved what happens when people come together and work together from different perspectives, very different characters, all with different skills, but actually get along very well on a personal level, so you can figure out the technical stuff, like the problem. So this is the first thing what I loved, and I hope you also loved it during that whole year. And the second thing is storytelling. You have to learn to tell a story. You're not just figuring out or stating a problem. This starts when my experience, Falk tries to get a good problem with the corporates, what is already a first act itself. But then afterwards, the students during the year, they get better and better at telling a story, and it helps us creating fantasies, new ideas. And at the end, we try to do this again to deal with the people that are not so hyped or motivated about the problem. And I think Imagineering is crucial to envision a different future that we want to live in, maybe a new utopia we want to live in. And it just helps to motivate people. So storytelling is the second big thing that I took out of this year.
Yeah.
Rita.
Yeah, I will not copy you. People is of course a very important one. I think I remember that my professor during sugar in the beginning said that what we were gonna change was thinking, and then in the end, looking back, I just I evolved into a very different person than I was just in the beginning. So that is definitely, it's not like a one moment aha moment, but it's like a 9 months aha moment, let's say. And then I think it's the prototyping part. I think it's so interesting. I came from a design background, so I was used to, do prototypes and mock-ups and so on. But when you actually start to do it with a purpose, let's say, and you start to do it for a reason and to test a specific thing, and then you let go of your imagination and creativity in the point of the dark horse, which I think is the most beautiful prototype ever. And please continue to use it in your corporate or entrepreneurial careers afterwards. I mean, you just realize the power of doing something tangible. As you were saying, Muriel, a bit of storytelling, how to convince other people, how to make other people dream, envision a different future, and really basically buy in what you're doing. Because it might seem, sometimes a bit messy and, patched together, the work of a design thinker, but it's actually based on a lot of like methods and rationality as well. So it's actually very good work, and prototypes are really useful. Continue to use them. Never stop. Don't disbelieve them.
Okay, so we are out of time, unfortunately. It was an absolute pleasure to talk with both of you, and I also hope that the audience enjoyed our conversation. Please feel free to also connect with us on LinkedIn, or Maya is definitely probably also a good contact person when you really want to dig deeper into a topic. You are in Lund or in Zurich, like let us know. We were open to connect about the city and cultures we live in, but also about the way we work and the way we think. And I think there's this German saying, you always see twice. And I think that is especially for the design thinking community. So we see ourselves as students, but we meet again once in work life, and then hopefully we can have the spirit again that we had in the sugar program. In this sense, I would like to thank you, and again, a big applause to Muriel and Rita for taking the time and being here today.
Thank you so much, Susanna.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.